To complete today's project, you need a very large silhouette stamp image, a light colored neutral ink, I'm using Sahara Sand dye ink, a greeting stamp, a black ink, a variety of colored pencils, I'm using Prismacolor pencils, and also a very fine-lined black pen. This is a Prismacolor Premier .005, and either some white or craft cardstock. The first thing you want to do is ink up your large silhouette stamp with some sort of neutral ink. I'm using a light colored neutral called Sahara Sand, which is a light grayish brown. And first, I'm going to use a little scrap piece of paper because I'm not going to use all of this image. To use the blended pencil technique, don't worry about getting a good impression like you normally would when you're stamping. It's not important because we're going to cover up all of those areas with colored pencil. The colored pencils that I'm using are Prismacolor pencils, and you can use any pencils for this technique, but I would choose one with a sort of a waxy finish. The reason that you want a smooth, waxy finish is the technique that I'm going to show you actually blends the colored pencils together, sort of like the way you would blend pastels or some other fine art mediums. So the texture you'll just have to play with and see what you get comfortable with. I like the ones that are smooth and somewhat waxy. What I'm going to do first is put down a layer of my main color, which is just a light turquoise blue, and I'm going to put it all over this flower. And the leaves even, there's going to be a little bit of blue in every section of this card. You probably wouldn't really have expected anything less from me. And I'm very roughly shading these areas. There's nothing precise about what I'm doing on this card until the very, very end. One of the complaints that people have about using silhouette images is that they can be boring, not have depth, not look three-dimensional. And I came up with this technique to show you that they can really come to life just like detailed stamp images can. Next, I'm going to come in with a very pale green, and I'm going to start blending my blue together with the green. The next step, where I come back in with the blue again and make it the dominant color, we'll blend these two layers together but leave this nice green highlight. And again, I'm going to apply this color to all of the areas of these flowers, even the dark part, what would be in nature the dark parts at the top. And of course, I'm going to add a lot of green to the stems. There are a lot of opportunities to salvage what you think might not be going well on a project like this. If you just have patience and give it a couple more tries and keep blending colors on top of each other, then you will come up with a combination that you really like. Now you might notice that the colors are kind of becoming homogeneous, which is what you want. There's very little definition in between different areas of color. And that is exactly what I want. Now when I come back the second time with the blue, I'm actually going to make it a little bit darker at the edges to give it just a little bit of realism. And this defines the petals just a little bit better and just adds more of that nice blue color that I want in this flower. You will also want to press a little bit harder as you go on. For one thing, the colors have blended together and they're a little bit harder to move around. They've created kind of a glossy surface on the image itself. Now I might even come in after this with a little bit of violet, which I think is a nice contrast, especially since it's a complementary color to the green. And I'll just shade a little bit at the top of the petals and kind of down into them just for a little drama. Because everybody's card could use a little drama. So I'll just come in just under the center of the flower and down the center of these petals. Like I said, you really can't go wrong with the number of colors that you add or the amount of color. Just treat these pencils like you would treat acrylic paint or other items that would blend together nicely. So now I think I've pretty much added all the color that I want to add. And now I'm going to come back with a very fine pen. And I'm going to give this all the definition that a silhouette stamp lacks. And I'm just going to use very fine lines. And I love this pen. It's 0.005, so it is super, super skinny. And I'm just giving very sketchy, you don't have to be very precise, but just very, very sketchy definition to the outside of each of these images. And to me, when I was experimenting with this technique, this is what really gave the image a lot of life to me and took it from being just an outline and a silhouette to something really beautiful and detailed. So if you're at that moment in your card where you say, I don't like this, it doesn't have enough life in it, just wait until you add the pen on the outside, and I think you'll love it. One of my favorite things to do is do these little light, sketchy lines down the center of the petals. I start with more pressure at the top, and then I lift my hand up just a little bit as I go towards the bottom of the petal. And I'm going to do the same thing for the heads of these little flowers. I have heavier pressure at the outside where I want the definition, and then lighter pressure towards the inside. And these are just very easy, light little strokes. And I make just kind of a little concentric little pattern towards the center. And then I come back and I make it just a bit darker. Just give it a little bit of realism underneath that top. And as you can see, I do this in sort of a random order. I don't really plan it out and do one step and then the next. The leaves can get this little feathery stroke too as they go down towards the rest of the plant. And I always save the big flower for last on this particular stamp image, which this stamp image, by the way, is called Inspired by Nature. I'm using a Stampin' Up! Image today. And this is kind of a large one. I've done this with smaller images too. But I really like the real estate that I can put color in when I'm using this technique. And so I kind of gravitate towards the larger silhouette images. And this one is just perfect. Gives me lots of embellishment opportunities. Now, if you've had 30 shots of espresso, this outlining can be a little rough, but it's art, and so you can make it as shaky as you want it to be. Now, on the large flower, I like to really make a fine line in between the petals, you know, just like as if you were looking at the flower. In real life, there would be a little bit of overlap, and a few would fall behind. And that's what I try to go for when I'm outlining. I try to kind of think about which petal would be in the back and which would be in the front, and that determines where I place the narrow black line. So now that these are outlined, again, I'll come back with a little bit of detail on the petals. And I am not kidding. There's nothing precise about this. This is all just Zen-like sketching. Then very light little fun strokes around the top of this flower, which I actually have no idea what this flower is called. I don't know if it's a black-eyed Susan. I'm not a botanist. I'm just a stamper. But it's pretty, whatever it is. You can always check out, you know, Dave's Garden or some kind of site where flowery people hang out. And you can find out. Or maybe somebody at Stampin' Up! Made up this flower. So now I have a good idea of what I think my flower is going to look like. And I'm just going to do a little cross hatching. I'm going to fill this in a little bit and give it just that shadow at the top, which I really like. I think this is now a much more realistic image than the one that we started with. And I like it. I also like to come in underneath the flower on the flower stem where there would be a shadow. Give that a little shading on each of those. And now your card is ready for a greeting. Now my producer, who is also my sister and a very green thumb, has informed me that this is in fact a cone flower. So I would like you all to use the precise name, please. I'm stamping a greeting that just says, "Love you much." And there you have your lovely blended pencil technique cone flower card.